welcome everybody. I'm so excited for this. It's like a big book club. That's kind of the way I've structured this Q&A. We're gonna like dive into everything. I'm sure that you guys are somewhat familiar with these authors and their work, but one of the first things I wanted to do before we get into everything is just have each of them give a little synopsis, a little teaser to kind of whet your appetite of some of the plots and themes and characters that we're going to dive into. I think we could probably just go down the line, Hannah, Farah, and Rachel. If you could each give us just a quick little blurb about your book that we're going to be talking about today.
Hi. Oh, hey. Yeah, I'm Hannah. I write contemporary romance. I don't know if we're talking about one book in particular today, but I will use the opportunity to talk about my upcoming book that you should all pre-order. People Watching is out September 9th, and it's set in Muskoka, Ontario, in a little town called Baysville, if anyone's familiar with Baysville. Okay, sick. It's between Bracebridge and Huntsville. And yeah, it's a story about Milo and Prue, who Prue's never left her small town, and Milo is a newcomer, and yeah, it's opposites attract. It's sex lessons. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. This covered it, right? But yeah, and I'm really excited to be here.
You know what? My bad, guys. I realized I'm talking to authors who are writing constantly all the time. So let me let me narrow our focus. We're gonna talk about Out of the Woods today.
Got it. Yeah.
And then no worries, because but she gave you a preview of what's sorry. So just file that away. And then for Farah, we're gonna be talking about her book Just Playing House, and for Rachel Reid, we're gonna be talking about The Shots You Take. Yes, please. Just a quick little.
Pretend nobody heard that, okay?
No, you heard it, and hear this as well.
Okay, so Out of the Woods is also set in Muskoka. So I kind of already did it, but no. So it's about a married couple who they were high school sweethearts, and they've been together for over 15 years, and they are entering into another year of marriage, kind of saying, okay, what now? Like, I love you, and I like you, but not all the time, and what does this look like for us? And so they go on this marriage retreat, and they hike through, all parts of Muskoka with these other quirky couples and a quirkier set of therapists, and yeah, that's Out of the Woods.
And I'm Farah. The book we're talking about, Just Playing House, is a romance between a couple that kind of hooked up on prom night and then never spoke again. He's going to be a movie star. She is trying to be a personal shopper, but right now she's a sales associate in luxury fashion. And because of romance reasons, he needs to take care of her after having surgery while she styles him for his press tour for the superhero movie he was just hired to star in. So it's kind of like Hollywood romance, but also really cozy, and everybody's at home a lot. There's lots of plants, lots of drinking tea. But it's also a Hollywood romance, and it's also high fashion world. So it's got a bit of everything, and that came out last year. But I'm going to just very, very briefly talk about my next release, which is actually comes out after, like it's the same people, the next, like all their friends that they're connected, which is coming out in October, and it's a Grumpy Sunshine holiday movie, and it's called A Little Holiday Fling. And you can pre-order it.
Hi, I'm sure everyone's here to hear me talk about The Shots You Take. But I like talking about it. It's a second chance romance between two retired NHL defensemen who are in their 40s now. And it's a lot of two guys working through a lot of history. It's set in small town Nova Scotia, which I really enjoyed writing because I am Nova Scotian. And yeah, it's like a bit of a melancholy read, but still has a happy ending, and I think still has some humor. I also just want to mention I have Parkinson's. I'm not having a nervous breakdown on stage. No panic attacks. I'm good.
Okay, so now that we've set the stage, now that you know the three different worlds that we're gonna explore, before we get too into that, I really wanted to connect with the title of this panel is called Making Love in Canada. And firstly, it starts with writing in Canada. We have 3 Canadian authors writing in the romance genre, and I think that they have really unique perspectives. And before we dive into what they have been working on and you know, have that conversation, I thought we could first kind of set the context with exploring what has it been like writing romance in Canada, and have you encountered any challenges or any unique opportunities or your perspective? I wanted to hear from each of you and see what your experience has been like. Or, I mean, or you know, or has it? Do you feel like you have any kind of unique perspective? Because I feel like even Rachel, for instance, you were writing from Nova Scotia. You're from Nova Scotia, or Farah or Hannah. Like, have you encountered any challenges, even on the business side, or do you think that because the thing is, we're here. It's Toronto Public Library. We want to like experience, like, kind of connect with that Torontonian Canadian aspect. Like, do you think that how does that influence what you do at all? I'd love to, if you can pull anything, or if you feel like it does, we'd love to hear about that.
I could probably start because my first book was set in New York City, so I think I'm maybe the only one who started my book set in America, because I thought like that's what you do in romance. They're set in New York. So, but after that, like I just decided I'd much rather write as many of my books set in Canada as possible, just because I think it's better to do that, like, because there just aren't as many, and it just felt more authentic for me, and especially where I'm writing hockey romance, it makes sense. And definitely for me, I started writing more Nova Scotian characters, even if the books weren't set in Nova Scotia. And yeah, I really enjoyed writing one that was set in Nova Scotia, in a small town in Nova Scotia, because yeah, I've lived there my whole life, so it just felt like more real to write that for me.
Yeah, I think the same. Like, I also thought that romance books took place in the U.S. My first book came in 2019, and I think the times were changing right then. So I'd never set anything other than in Toronto. And I think if I had tried to do that even 2 years earlier, it would have been harder. So I'm super grateful that that people are reading Canadian romance, because Canada's great. But there's definitely a difference from the American. Like, the community, the writing community, obviously Canada is much smaller than the US, so the romance community, especially back when I started, was also smaller. None of my contemporaries at the time were writing books set in Canada. They'd been writing for a long time for Harlequin or for other publishers, and they always set their stuff in the US. So I was really one of the first of people that I know. Now people are doing it more, but also just like the lit scene. Like, it's so absolutely amazing we have this romance festival now. When I started out in romance, like we all think about CanLit, and CanLit is wonderful, and there's some great books coming out of Canada, but it's not commercial fiction. Commercial fiction is just now Canada's like, oh yeah, people enjoy enjoyment. Interesting. So it's great that Canada, I feel like finally, like I'm getting invited to lit festivals, there's romance festivals, all these things were like unheard of when I was starting out, which was only in 2019.
Yeah, I think the thing I've noticed the most, in kind of contradiction towards like releasing books set in Canada, like all of my books have been set in Canada, but to like a large consumer base that I think, you know, obviously Canadians read, hi guys, but like a large consumer base in the original days for me was an American base. And so having to put like in my author's notes, like, this book is set in Canada. Please don't get mad that there's no hospital bills. Please don't get mad. Like, because my first book, Next of Kin, like, it's about the foster care system, and she adopts her newborn sister who is out of the NICU, and a lot of people at first were like, why are they not talking about these like bills and all of these things, and why is the CPS system different, and why is it CA, you know, and just stuff like that. I think logistically can sometimes be difficult, and like with Out on a Limb too, like I put in my author's note again, like, you know, like, spoiler alert, it's a pregnancy novel, it's like chapter 4, but like, and you know, she finds out she's pregnant, and she has this conversation with her doctor, and like all this like about her options, and putting in my author's note then, like, you know, she was able to do that because she lives in Canada, and this is, you know, like, and I think like there's been a really interesting discourse that's been able to happen with readers that is kind of like, interesting and eye-opening in a sense to like have a conversation about, yeah, this book's set in Canada and that does look different even though we are neighbors and even though, you know, we share a lot in common, there's some differences here, and that's been really interesting to see.
That's beautiful. I think that that's really what this question in this moment was about, was one, how Farah kind of touched on, like witnessing how the growth of this Canadian writing romance, you know, community has grown, and seeing how our different perspectives show up in the way that you're writing, and also being exposed, showing readers new landscapes, like Rachel is talking about. Like, there's so much exciting Canadian perspective that we bring to the romance genre. So thank you guys for definitely everything that you do to contribute to that. The next thing I want to talk about, I want to stay on location for a little bit, but now I want to dive into your books, because all three of your books, as we kind of touched on, are set in Canada. And when I was reading them all, I noticed that there's a relationship that the characters have to location that I wanted to point out. Like in Rachel's instance with The Shots You Take, one of her main characters, Adam, I found that he finds himself when he goes to Nova Scotia. And for Hannah, I found that with your characters, it's as if when they escape into nature, they have an opportunity to break away from the norm. And with Farah, just seeing this kind of juxtaposition between Toronto and LA and what those two places mean for their characters. I was like, setting is a major thing here. I wanted to see if you guys wanted to weigh in and expand and share with us kind of how you used setting as a device and what its importance was for you to tell the story that you wanted to tell.
I can go first.
Yes, please.
So my books, I say that my books are all set in Toronto, but technically some of them, they go places, but they're all Torontonians. All of my characters are people from Toronto. And that to me is my world. I mean, I'm born and raised in Toronto. I've been here forever, and I think it's a fantastic city. It's also a really easy city to write. Like, I'm writing a Hollywood romance about a movie star, and it totally makes sense that's in Toronto because that's where the movie's filming. And there's a lot of other things that just like, oh, this is so easy because Toronto has that. It's a great city for that. I think it's the same reason why every romance was set in New York for a while. So I find it easy, not just because I live here, but that you can get anything in Toronto. The flavor of the city is definitely different. This hasn't happened to me so much in my adult books, but I write YA as well. And I've had more than one reviewer say that I'm adding forced diversity to my books. And I'm like, excuse me? Forced. It's unnatural to have people of other colors in this. And I'm like, okay, so I live in Toronto, born and raised. I am a person of color, as you can see, hopefully. And so I'm writing a person of color in Toronto, so obviously they exist. I'm here, right? But when I'm writing my YA books especially, I'm writing about teenagers. And I used to work in a Toronto high school. My kids, my daughter just graduated, my son graduated a few years ago. They went to Toronto high schools. I know what the demographics of a Toronto high school is. And I think sometimes people don't get it. People don't understand that the diversity in this city is not, it's not odd, it's not thought of as being unique. People coming from different walks of life. One of the things I love in Toronto is some of the best neighborhoods are right next to the worst. So all of these things kind of create a very unique community that is so much fun to write. I can write about class differences without having to worry about, oh, they're from the east side and they're from the west side or anything like that. I can write about people coming from all different walks of life in the same place, being friends. It's completely normal. It's not forced diversity. I can't stand that term. So that's why I love. So overall, I've just loved writing about Toronto, and I think even if I didn't live here, I would still keep doing it.
I love Toronto. Like, I'm never happier than when I'm in Toronto for any reason.
Stay then.
Love it. I would every time I'm here. I'm like when Don Draper goes to LA, you know, and he's like, that's like me. And I kind of did a reverse of that in The Shots You Take with Adam.
You did.
Which wasn't supposed to reflect badly on Toronto because I love Toronto. It's just him. It's just the life for him to live in a little village by the sea. But like, I don't know if I could do that. I think I'd rather live here. But yeah, no, I mean, Toronto is New York too, Nova Scotians. So it's Yeah, I love it, and I love, yeah, the diversity is like a major part of why Toronto is so great. And yeah, I've said a couple books at least partially in Toronto, and I do my best because I've never lived here, but I try to show how much I love it. But I've also made Toronto like a villain team in some of my books and things like that. So people do think I don't like Toronto, but it's not true. I just want to say I love it.
Yeah, my books are kind of set outside of Toronto, but vaguely. I don't really ever name where they are because at the time I was living there, and I just thought that was weird. But but like most of my books are kind of set in like the Hamilton general like GTA area where hell yeah, where I grew up. And then, like kind of, I now live in the Niagara region, so a lot of Niagara influence as well. But like you said, and Out of the Woods, I took Sarah and Caleb out of their little Hamiltonian fancy neighborhood, and I put them in the woods. And they had a hard time, and I loved it. I loved that they struggled with that. I think that being able to show like the juxtaposition of like having this kind of comfortable lifestyle and these mundane routines, and it really bled into the way that they have been in this routine of their marriage and their relationship for so long, and using the place to kind of show the difference of that. And I mean, obviously I keep bringing up Muskoka, but I love it there. It's my kind of happy place and where I find the most peace and solitude. And so whenever it comes to like kind of taking characters out of their comfort zone, I find them there, because I think there's nothing better than just like kind of having that 2-3 hours away, you can just escape into nature and really like find some inner peace away from the city, away from the chaos and everything. And but I like Toronto too. I'm just not here a whole lot, but I like it, I promise.
I love the reputation that people outside of Toronto think, like we think that they all hate us. And a lot of them do.
I don't love your traffic.
I don't love
I get
Everybody
stressed out.
hates that,
I
so.
can't drive here. I turn into a different person. Yeah. I'm like, oh, everything's fine, like whatever. And then I get in Toronto, I'm like, I need everyone to leave their cars. I need everyone to stop. But yeah. That's me. I had my 3-hour drive yesterday, so I'm still coming off of that. But we're friends. It's okay. Toronto and I are good now.
So, one thing I noticed that I really enjoyed about these 3 different love stories was that each of these characters and these couples, they had background. They had, for instance, in The Shots You Take, and also in Just Playing House, both of these sets of couples, they have history, and they reunite after like 10, 12 years. And then even in the case of our married couple, who have, while they've physically been together the entire time, you can see that they've grown, there's some emotional distance, and that they have to come back and find each other. There's elements of reunion, and that makes for such a compelling love story as we read throughout. And I wanted to know what your experience was crafting these journeys and why you chose to tell these relationships with long-standing history, and like walk us through if there's anything through like when how you chose to do that and why you wanted to tell those types of stories in these books.
Yeah, I can go. Okay. For me, in Out of the Woods, like I said, Sarah and Caleb are high school sweethearts. They meet in like grade 10. And they start dating pretty soon after. They get married when they're very young. They get married when they're 19. And part of that is because of the main character's mom is ill and is going to pass away. And they think they're inevitable and they're going to get married anyways. Why not do it when she can be a part of it? But also just because they love each other so much. And we really see them now in their like early 30s, and they're contemplating all of these big life choices. And they're very certain of each other, and they're very certain that they made the right decision, but they don't feel aligned and they don't feel connected. And our main character, Sarah, especially, feels very lost within herself. And she doesn't, there's a line where she's like, how can I be half of a person for half of my life and not feel like I know myself? And I didn't get the chance to know myself before I fell in love and I committed my life to this person. And honestly, that just comes from, I married my high school sweetheart. I met my husband the day after I was born, which is such a weird thing to say. But our families were really good friends, and there's a really awkward picture of him as a toddler holding me as a newborn that I... It's a whole thing. But I'll show you guys later. And then, there's the Halloween when I was 5 years old and dressed up as a bride sitting next to him. It's a whole meta situation. But we started dating when we were in high school, and I got married when I was 18. Thank you. Crazy, don't do that. If anyone's thinking about it, you shouldn't. I did, and it's great, but don't do it. But no, I think Out of the Woods was my 4th full-length novel, and I had explored all of these different meet cutes and all of these different situations with forced proximity and brought these two complete strangers together, or people who were friends and they're stepping into this new territory within a relationship, or complete strangers who have a one-night stand and then they're forced together. But then when it came to Out of the Woods, I felt this real calling to just want to write something that just felt more authentic to my own lived experience and my own love story, and the complications, as you say, that come with re-meeting the person you love and restarting and figuring out who you are with somebody else in tow for that, which is incredibly difficult, and knowing you're in the right relationship but having to fight for it, and having those unique sort of perspective, and it was really cathartic and really fun and really we talked a lot. My husband read it and he'd go, "Oh yeah, okay, hell yeah, we're putting it all cards on the table." I was like, yeah. So really it just came from a place of knowing and loving people who were similar situations to me, who would be like, okay, I love romance, I love these meet cutes, I love these stories, but I don't identify with it because, I met my husband in a gymnasium, and I'm like, same. That was kind of the why behind it, and I loved getting to do it.
That is so cute. I hope we get to see those pictures.
I will show them. I will. I'll do it. Threatening. No, just kidding.
Yeah, I can go. So in Just Playing House, the couple, Marley and I don't remember his name.
Nick.
Thank you, Nick. I write a lot of books.
I'm here to help.
Okay, so they knew each other in high school, and they hooked up on prom night, and then they went their separate ways. And I wanted them to have a connection when they come together at the beginning of the book, because, as I said, he's taking care of her after surgery. And you're not going to have somebody that you don't know at all take care of you after major surgery. I also needed them to have some sexual history, especially some chemistry, before she has surgery, because that's gross. And so it was all very okay for technical reasons that I had them know each other before, not for emotional reasons. But as I was writing it, I kind of got more into the emotional part of it, because I really thought about how they felt about themselves and each other when they were young, when they were teenagers, versus who they are now. So both of them during the book are going through something very difficult. She's having major surgery. She's feeling certain ways about her body and about things that are changing. And he's also going through a lot. He's got some family trauma that he's dealing with, while at the same time trying to figure out how to navigate this new superstardom that he didn't ask for. And it's one of those cases where he was hired to be a superhero, and everyone's like, wait, he's brown, he can't play blank, blank, blank. So that's very difficult. It's very traumatic for him that he finally gets this amazing thing that he's been working towards, and he's already getting all this negative press for it. So they're both in a place of trauma, and I think leaning into the fact that they already have a connection allowed me to have them support each other much sooner. They didn't have to get to know each other. They didn't have to do anything like that. They already knew. Also, I added a bit of pining. He's been into her the whole time. Her not so much, but that was really, really fun to write about him saying, well, she was the perfect woman when I was 18, and now I'm seeing she's a real person, not this amazing perfection that I have built up in my head for so long. So him kind of coming to terms so he falls in love with who she is now, even though he'd always loved who she was before, but really they didn't know each other that well, and she was just my ultimate perfection. And of course, pining is so much fun, and writing, that was the first time I also wrote a male POV, and it was so much fun that his every third thought was about her, which was so cool. Yeah, so that's kind of how it happened. I don't know if I would necessarily write another second chance. I wrote another second chance, China Goes Wild, and that just ripped my heart out when I wrote it. That was a toughie. I think the book turned out great. I'm very happy with it, but it was so difficult to work through all the drama in that relationship. So I'm done now.
Yeah, The Shots You Take is all drama, and it was difficult to write. And I knew going into it, second chance romance is so tricky, especially when the reason why they drifted apart in the first place was because of some bad behavior. Because you have to work hard to redeem the character who behaved badly. So you need to make them do something bad enough that it makes sense that these two people that are definitely still in love with each other have stayed apart for a while. I believe it's 12 years in The Shots You Take. I've been trying to remember the name of the other guy too. It's Riley. It's
Riley and Adam.
Riley and Adam. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was like,
I will tell you anything you need to know about your books.
yeah. So they've been apart for 12 years. So I had to make one of them. I mean, they both had to do some things, but one of them particularly bad. But I had to explain it. I had to make him forgivable, make him redeemable. And I think you're not going to get 100% of readers on board when you have that. Like, some people are going to say, you can't, he's not forgivable. And that's just kind of the risk of second chance romance, I think. And for me, I like doing it because, now that I'm in my 40s, I think a lot about people I knew and who I was in my 20s, and things that seemed unforgivable at the time, I can put into a different perspective now. And so that's sort of what I was doing with that book, was thinking a lot about people I've, held grudges against, people maybe I've behaved badly to when I was younger, and what's forgivable and what's not, with wisdom and age. So that's, I basically was very careful with it. It was very difficult. And it was one of the sadder books I've written, but I like how it turned out. And I hope Adam works for people.
No, all three. There's a lot of groveling, yearning, pining. Highly recommend. So now what I want to do is I have so many questions, and I know I want to be cognizant of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it up, which is going to be so hard, and I'm going to ask each of you kind of individual stuff, but so we get to dive into their books in a different way. But it's so hard to be time sensitive. Okay, so this next question, I'll start with a song. I have Sabrina Carpenter's Bed Chem in my notes, and that is because that song and the lyrics to that song, as I'm sure you guys probably know, is all about intimacy and sexual chemistry, and just when you have that certain person and things just click. And that song is the thing that I just kept thinking about, specifically when I was reading Riley and Adam's story. They have really good bed chem. Tell me how it was writing their chemistry and their evolution, because even they really develop true intimacy, especially Adam, and how was that writing that?
Yeah, that was the fun part of writing that book. I liked that, although I think because they came from a place when they were young, because they were the first part of their kind of relationship was very secret when they were in their 20s. It was the early mid 2000s. There was a lot of fear and a lot of internalized homophobia, especially on Adam's part. And so their chemistry was there when they were young, but the intimacy was very, I would say it was lacking a lot of things. And when they get together when they're older, it's a lot more tender, loving, open, honest, emotional. And it was really satisfying to write that after writing, the stuff that was a little bit sad. Although still kind of had hot chemistry, but it wasn't. It was missing some important elements.
It's hot chemistry that matures. That's what. So, okay. I think I want to. Okay, I'm gonna pitch this one to you, Hannah.
Hi.
Okay, you got this. So one thing, but this, I could see it in all three of the books, but yours specifically really stood out for me. And I think that when we look at love stories, obviously we all love a good love story. We love romance. We love the butterflies and the happy things. But for me, what can add depth to a book is that counterbalance of emotions. And for each of these books, they all had an element of grief as a counterbalance to love. But I really pulled that out from yours because I know that we have Sarah and her mother. She died from ALS when she was very young. And that is something that we can tell. It almost like it really throws off her growth and her maturity. And we see how that shows up in her marriage and how there's so much that both her and Caleb have to overcome as a result of this traumatic experience that they both experienced together, this grief that they have to unpack and deal with and evolve. How was it like putting that in your book and giving that as a counterbalance to their love story? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think, so for Sarah and Caleb, obviously, because their relationship was pretty substantiated by the point of her mother's diagnosis, it was really a grief that they shared, but obviously affected Sarah more so. And I think an element of it that was really important for me to show was that with her, she was a single mother, but the family dynamic was two single moms living together, raising two daughters. And Sarah, she becomes this caretaker for her mom from a pretty young age. She's still in high school when she's diagnosed, and she's still pretty young when her mom passes away. And so she kind of gets stuck in this age, right? Like, I think a lot of us who have experienced grief, myself included, like, feel like when you lose somebody, a lot of yourself stays in that time of who you were at that time. And I think because this was her, only and main parental figure, and also just like this person that Sarah deeply loved and deeply cared about. They had a beautiful relationship that I got to show in some flashback scenes. It was just one of those things that just like it was always going to impact her greatly. But I think because of the nature of how it ties in with her marriage and her relationship with Caleb, and the fact that it kind of sped up their timeline in a way, was something that was really important for me to include throughout Out of the Woods, because, yeah, like I said, so much of her is kind of stuck in that time frame, and a lot of what she's going through and discussing with her therapist and discussing with these other people that they're on this retreat with is just this element of, I don't know how to get myself past that because I didn't envision a life without my mom. I didn't want it, and I feel like time has just continued, but I'm still there. Like, part of me is still in that situation, looking after her, wanting better for her, watching her pass away. And obviously her grief is so visceral for her, and Caleb as well, who loved her and knew her as well. And so it's just an element of logistically trying to balance that with the like hee-hee-ha-has, now they're gonna have sex. For lack of a better word. But it's just a tricky balance. I think the thing is, though, all good love stories, in my opinion, have it. I think that that's the reality of life. Life is hard. It's tough. I think especially writing a marriage, that's been going on for over a decade, like, you need to include these things, because that's the hardship of it, right? Is it's no longer rainbow and sunshine and butterflies after that first meet cute. It's not the build up to them being intimate for the first time, or getting engaged, or becoming boyfriend and girlfriend, or whatever other milestones there are. It's this life that's ongoing, and that is the fear of it. That's the core of it, is that they just see this future ahead of them, and it's vast, and it's huge, and it's unpredictable, and it's scary. And showing them kind of overcoming that and getting through it and still dealing with that, and seeing how it affects their relationship and their dynamic, and having big conversations that they've put off having out of fear, I think was like just a really meaningful way of showing their connection and showing how they can show up for each other, and how Caleb can come to better understand her through her grief instead of trying to put it in the past.
That's real life. There's the happy times and there's the sad times.
Mm-hmm.
And Farah, what I really wanted to, I think your book did this very strongly, though I want to talk about platonic supportive relationships and community, because obviously love doesn't just exist in romantic love, there's so many other types of love, and there's so many other kinds of relationships that we have. And all of these books have this sort of community that supports the characters, but one thing I noticed in just playing house is community and family is like so integral. Not only Marley's community and her family and her besties and her cousins, but Nick's family and his sister and his dad and his mom, and they all play such key roles in moving the characters forward, not only in their relationship with each other, but also their relationship with their self. Can you talk about, how it was crafting that family and community and what it meant for you in this story?
Yeah, absolutely. Family is super important in all my books. I grew up in a South Asian community here in Toronto. Parents were immigrants. And for a lot of immigrant communities, families are the only familiar thing you have from back home. So we grow up a little bit different. I always find it that our cousins are a little bit closer to us. Our siblings are a little bit different. And so I always think about family dynamics and how I can show how an immigrant community, especially children of immigrants, how they grow up with that little bit of the community that they grew up with, how they maintain it. And also the super differences. Marley and Nick are both South Asians. But their families are very different. They're actually, they're not even the same religion. Nick comes from a Hindu family, Marley comes from a Muslim family. Neither are religious, but they have enough differences so that they don't necessarily fully understand each other's lives, but they also do. And their parents support them in different ways, in often not very good ways in this particular book. And I think that also, the outer circle to me is even more important, the found family. So as I said, Marley has surgery in this book, and it was kind of weird to write a book where the main character has a mastectomy during the book, not in the past, but during the book. And so when you're having major surgery like that, it's interesting to see all the different ways that people will support you, or that won't support you, or don't know how to support you, or want to support you but don't understand. Also, Marley's the kind of person where she doesn't want to lean on anyone. She's very independent. She's kind of private. She has her best friends, but she doesn't really talk about herself much. She just kind of supports them and whatever. So to have her kind of open up to understanding that she needs help, to have friends that are I don't know how to help you. This is not something I can understand. To have other friends that are I want to help you, but you won't let me in. So it's the gamut of different support from different people. And of course, the cousins are always there being ridiculous and bringing food and doing something silly. Because again, South Asian communities, our cousins are I don't know. I don't even know how to describe. Those of you who are other Asians are yeah, cousins are something different in our communities. And that is something that I very intentionally put in there. So it's all about different kinds of support and different kinds of love.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I wish that we could keep going, book club besties, but unfortunately, I have maxed my time. But I just want to say thank you so much. There's so much that we could dive into with these books and their themes and their love stories, but you guys have gave us so much to kind of excite us about these books.